The old Olympia Stadium glows under its bright lights. Red and white banners hang from the ceiling, showing the Detroit Red Wings' proud history. The wooden seats are packed with fans wearing Red Wings jerseys. Many of them have How 9 on their backs. The crowd's excitement builds as they stamp their feet on the wooden floor. The sound grows louder and louder until it becomes a clear chant. Gordie, Gordie, Gordie. Through the crowd's noise, we hear an older man's warm, thoughtful voice. There are great hockey players, and then there's Gordie Howe. Some folks call him a legend. Others say he's the greatest to ever play the game. But everyone knows him by one special name, Mr. Hockey. That title wasn't just given to him. He earned it shift by shift, game by game, season by season, for over 5 decades. The arena lights dim, casting long shadows across the ice. A spotlight catches the distinctive figure of Gordie Howe, now in his mid-40s but still powerful, gliding onto the ice. His skates leave clean marks on the fresh surface. He raises his stick to acknowledge the crowd, and their roar gets even louder. But to understand why Gordie Howe became Mr. Hockey, we need to go back to where it all began, when a young farm boy from Saskatchewan first laced up a pair of skates and stepped onto the frozen ponds of the prairies. Snow blankets the vast prairie landscape. The small farming town of Floral sits quietly under the cold winter sky. Smoke rises from chimneys of scattered farmhouses. The sound of children playing carries through the crisp air. In 1932, Floral, Saskatchewan was just another small farming town on the Canadian prairies. Times were tough during the Great Depression, and the Howe family, like many others, got by with what they had. We find young Gordie, age 4, standing in the doorway of his family's modest home. His mother, Catherine Howe, wraps a worn scarf around his neck and hands him his first pair of skates. They're used and a bit too big. Those first skates weren't much to look at. They were secondhand like most things back then, but to young Gordie, they might as well have been made of gold. Young Gordie wobbles across a frozen pond, falling again and again. But each time he gets back up, determination clear on his face. Other kids zoom past him, but he keeps trying. What people noticed about young Gordie wasn't just his natural talent, it was his determination. He'd practice from sunup to sundown, using a stick carved from a tree branch and a frozen clump of dirt as a puck. As the years pass quickly, we see Gordie growing taller, stronger. Now 12, he's working at a construction site, carrying heavy materials, his muscles developing beyond his years. Life on the prairie wasn't easy. By age 12, Gordie was already working construction, building up the strength that would later make him famous. But every free moment was spent on the ice, learning the game that would become his life. Young teenage Gordie now stands on the pond, no longer wobbling. He stick handles smoothly, his movements confident and strong. A small crowd of local kids watches in amazement. Word started spreading about the kid from Floral who could outskate boys twice his age. But it wasn't just his skating that got attention. Young Gordie had something special, a perfect mix of skill and toughness that would change hockey forever. The smell of fresh ice fills the air as 16-year-old Gordie Howe steps into Detroit's famous arena for the first time, his eyes wide with wonder, taking in the red seats and the winged wheel logo at center ice. In 1946, Detroit was known as Hockey Town, and the Red Wings were the team every young player dreamed of joining. But no one could have guessed that this shy teenager from Saskatchewan would become the heart and soul of the franchise for the next 25 years. Gordie skates during his first practice, now wearing the red and white jersey with number 9. The veteran players watch him with growing respect as he shows his skills. From his very first practice, there was something different about Gordie. He wasn't the fastest player on the ice or the most skilled with the puck, but he had something else, a perfect mix of talent, strength, and smarts that made him special. We see Gordie in his first game delivering a clean but powerful check, then skating away with the puck to score. The crowd rises to their feet. Soon, people started talking about something called a Gordie Howe Hat Trick, a goal, an assist, and a fight all in one game. It showed everything he was about, scoring, helping his teammates, and standing up for himself when needed. The scene shifts to show Gordie playing alongside Sid Abel and Ted Lindsay, the famous production line, in action. Then came the production line, Gordie Howe, Sid Abel, and Ted Lindsay. They called them that because they produced so many goals, just like Detroit's car factories produced automobiles. Together, they changed how hockey was played. We see quick flashes of 4 Stanley Cup celebrations: 1950, 1952, 1954, and 1955. Each time, Gordie's smile gets bigger, his confidence grows stronger. For Stanley Cups in 6 years, the Red Wings weren't just winning. They were becoming one of the greatest teams in hockey history. And at the center of it all was number 9, getting better every year, breaking records, and doing things nobody had ever seen before. Sports writers sit hunched over their typewriters, cigarette smoke swirling in the air as they watch Gordie dominate another game below. Nobody quite remembers who first called him Mr. Hockey. Maybe it was a newspaper writer trying to capture what made Gordie special. Maybe it was a fan who saw how he carried himself both on and off the ice. But once people started using it, everyone knew it was perfect. We see Gordie at a children's hospital, still in his suit after a game, spending time with young patients, teaching them how to hold a hockey stick properly. You see, Gordie wasn't just any hockey player. He was everything people thought a hockey player should be. Tough when he needed to be, gentle when it mattered. A fighter on the ice, a gentleman off it. The scene shifts to show Colleen Howe, Gordie's wife, watching him play from the stands. She's taking notes, thinking ahead. It was Gordie's wife, Colleen, who saw how special the nickname was. She made sure to trademark Mr. Hockey, not just to protect it, but because she knew it was more than just a nickname. It was who Gordie was. The crowd stands in amazement as they witness something never seen before in professional sports, a father playing alongside his sons. Just when people thought Gordie Howe's story was over, he wrote a whole new chapter. At age 45, when most players had long hung up their skates, he came out of retirement. But this wasn't just any comeback. He was about to do something no one had ever done before. We see Gordie on the ice with his sons Mark and Marty Howe, all wearing Houston Aeros jerseys. They pass the puck between them with natural ease. Playing professional hockey with his sons Mark and Marty wasn't just a dream come true for Gordie. It was proof that Mr. Hockey still had something left to give the game. And give he did. He didn't just play, he excelled. The scene shifts through various arenas, showing Gordie breaking record after record. The records started piling up. Most games played, most goals scored, most years in professional hockey. But Gordie never talked about records. He just talked about how lucky he was to still be playing the game he loved. We return to where our story began, the familiar chant of Gordie. Gordie fills the arena once more. We end where we began, in the old Olympia Stadium. But now we understand why those fans weren't just cheering for a hockey player. They were celebrating everything that made hockey great. Gordie takes his final lap around the ice, waving to the crowd. This time we see faces in more detail. Elderly fans who watched him as young men, parents holding up their children for a better view, players from opposing teams standing in respect. They called him Mr. Hockey because no other name could capture what he meant to the game. Not just the goals, the fights, or the championships, but the way he showed us that greatness isn't just about what you do, but how you do it. The spotlight follows Gordie as he stops at center ice. He raises his stick one more time, and the roar becomes deafening. From those frozen ponds in Floral, Saskatchewan, to the bright lights of the NHL. From a secondhand pair of skates to the Hall of Fame. From a shy farm boy to the man who would define hockey for generations. This is why they called him Mr. Hockey, because he wasn't just the greatest player of his time. He was the heart of the game itself. The arena lights slowly dim, but the spotlight remains on Gordie's number 9 banner, hanging from the rafters. Years from now, people might forget some of the records, the goals, or even the championships. But they'll never forget what it meant when someone said Mr. Hockey. Because Gordie Howe wasn't just a nickname. It was the story of hockey itself, told through one remarkable man who played the game better, longer, and with more dignity than anyone ever had or ever would. The spotlight fades slowly on the number 9 as the sound of skates on ice, crowd cheers, and that familiar chant of Gordie blend together one last time. That's why he was Mr. Hockey, and that's why he always will be.